It is 1 o'clock on the dot, and it is time for our last educational workshop this weekend. My name is Brendan Kinsey, and I will be your facilitator for this session. One last time, let's review some housekeeping items. You are now muted and will remain muted until the instructor asks me to unmute you or finishes his presentation. Your videos are on and you may keep them on, but remember, we can see you. If you do not wish to be seen, please turn off your video. At the end of this session, I will paste an evaluation link in the chat window. And I'm telling you as well, later today, an email will be going out that includes an evaluation for the entire weekend. So you'll have your chance to let us know how we did this weekend. And now, one last time, I get to read an introduction. As soon as my computer, it's been a long weekend, my computer's decided it's gonna have some fun here. Give me just a moment, everybody. Jim Barber has been an active Toastmaster for over 30 years. He is the only person to have served as president of the Florida Speakers Association not once, but twice. But what's significant this afternoon is that he's enjoyed a career as a professional speaker for more than 40 years. This means he survived the dot-com bubble of the 1990s, the hospitality industry collapse following 9/11, the Great Recession, and other such troubling times as the one we're in right now. In other words, he's a survivor. And once again, he intends to overcome the challenges that are facing us today. In this presentation, he will share with you his thoughts on how you too can not only survive the coming months, but thrive as a pro speaker in an industry in chaos. Please help me welcome Advanced Toastmaster Gold, Jim Barber, who is currently muted. Let's try that again. Please help me welcome Jim Barber.
Technology, isn't it wonderful? I sympathize, Brandon. I've been having technology problems here as well, and unmuting myself was just the latest in a long line, but we're going to have great things here today. All right, welcome to the session, and we've got some incredible things to talk about. Basically, what I'm going to be talking about over the next hour is the state of the professional speaking industry from this point forward. And I can sum it up basically in 3 words. I don't know. I don't think anybody knows. The details are changing far, far too fast. Nobody could have predicted where we are now just a few months ago. So I'm not going to begin to predict where we're going to be at the end of the year. That's not the point of this presentation. The point is I'm going to give you the information, I'm going to give you the guidance that you need to survive or to launch your career as a professional speaker, despite not knowing what's going to be happening in the next few years. So I'm not predicting, I'm just telling you how you can cope, how you can survive, how you can thrive despite all of that. Do a couple of things and to start with. Number one, I've got far more material to cover than I've got time to do. So what we're going to do, it's not going to be a nice interactive webinar. It's not going to be anything, a good Toastmasters presentation. I'm going to do a data dump. I'm going to talk hard and fast, but that's okay because you're going to be able to follow along without a problem. I have plenty of time for you to ask questions. Unfortunately, I do not have time for me to answer your questions. So here's what we're going to do. Please feel free to put your questions in the chat box, and I will hopefully towards the end of the session, ask Brandon or whoever's my monitor to give me the one or two best questions. It's Brandon, okay, to give me the one or two best questions that we can do, and I'll handle those couple. There will be many other questions that I will not have time to get to. I will answer them. This is what I'm going to do, and I just found out that I cannot minimize Zoom, so let me do it this way. I have, ta-da, a handout, a resource packet that you can find at thebarbershop.com/D47VEW. And what I'll do is I'll put the answer to all of the questions that you're going to ask in the chat box in the resource packet over the days or possibly weeks, depending on how many questions you have to come, okay? Now, that doesn't do you any good, of course, after the session is over or for people listening to the recording. So after the session is over, if you have any questions, send those by email to jim.d47vew@thebarbershop.com. And once again, I will add the answers to those questions to the resource packet. The resource packet does not have anything to do with what I'm talking about in this session. So I can tell everybody's looking it up right now. You don't really need to. It is important that you look at the resource packet after we're done, because it contains all the information that I didn't have time to talk about. I will be adding other resources to it over time. And of course, I'll be putting the answers to your various questions. So I want you to look at the resource packet, not necessarily now, but after the session is over, a couple of days from now, a week from now, a month from now, come back and check out the resource packet and see how it has changed. It is dynamic. Might as well take advantage of the technology. This is a dynamic handout. It will change over time. Let's see if we can get me back. Let's see if we can get me back.
And if you're paying attention, you'll see that the website and his email have shown up in the chat window now. So
thank you, Brandon. I appreciate that. I am not having any success. There we are. Okay, I'm back. Now, let's see, what am I basing all this on? Other than my experience over the last 40 years, I accessed a crystal ball. This is my peek into the future. This is not the only thing that I'm relying on. I am going to reveal the other parts a little bit later on, but who is this for? This is for primarily, I would say, for aspiring speakers. Many people over the years have said, gee, I'd like to be a professional speaker. What's involved? Now, many people are involuntarily experiencing a career change. And they are perhaps thinking of, should I become a professional speaker? I can tell you without reservation, no qualifications whatsoever, this is absolutely the worst time in history to become a professional speaker. It is also, without qualification and without reservation, the absolute best time in history to become a professional speaker. Two different statements, contradictory statements, but they're both true. It depends on you. If you don't do things right, it's the worst time. You're going to fail, and you're going to fail miserably. If you do things right, you've got a good shot at making a good living and becoming a professional speaker. And that is what we're going to be talking about this afternoon during this session. First of all, let's talk about what is a pro speaker. Now that may seem obvious. You may think you know what a pro speaker is, but actually it's kind of controversial. Toastmasters, for example, defines what a professional speaker is to earn their accredited speaker designation. They have a set of criteria. The National Speakers Association has a different set of criteria for joining the National Speakers Association. The National Speakers Association also has a different criteria, a third criteria, for earning their Certified Speaking Professional designation, CSP. So there's all kinds of qualifications around there, all sorts of criteria. I'm going to give you my criteria as far as what we're talking about today. If you are engaged in a business where speaking directly or indirectly affects your income, then you are a professional speaker. Nothing about audience, nothing about whether video or in person, nothing about marketing materials or anything like that. If your speaking ability has an impact directly or indirectly on your income, as far as I'm concerned, you're a professional speaker and you are a candidate for what we're going to be talking about today. Okay, now, with that out of the way, I want to stress something. This is not the first time that I've given this sort of presentation. The details are very different, but actually 35 years ago at a District 47 conference, I gave a similar presentation going from 3 to fee. And I told them something that I'm going to tell you now. You are not speakers. I want to drum that into you. You are not speakers. Now, you can promote yourself as a speaker. When somebody asks, what do you do for a living? You say, I'm a speaker. That's cool. They understand what that means. But when you look in the mirror, I don't want you to say, hello, speaker. I want you to say, I'm not a speaker. I am a business owner. Now, this is what I told people 35 years ago. It's still valid today, but nowadays, we've gotten a little more sophisticated, and I think pretty much everybody recognizes, well, yeah, I'm a business owner. Who isn't a business owner? So I'm changing that a little bit. You are not a speaker. You are a problem solver. If you will remember, this is your takeaway. Remember, takeaway. We're talking pro speaking here, big money. If you remember that one thing, you are a problem solver. You are head and shoulders above everybody else. You are doing better than everybody else. You are a problem solver. You are solving problems. The reason for that is that leads to several other questions that you need to answer. First of all, it's kind of obvious. What is the problem that you are solving? If you don't know, I've had people to come up to me and say, I want to speak on monarch butterflies. Well, that's fine, but monarch butterflies aren't a problem. You've got to identify a problem. People will pay you money to solve their problems, but you first have got to know what the problem is that you are solving, okay? Once you know what the problem is, you define, and you don't have to do these in order, but you have to answer all the questions. Who has the problem? Doesn't do you any good to provide a solution to a problem if that person that you're providing it to doesn't have the problem. So you've got to identify what is the problem that I can solve and who has the problem. Now, once you've identified who has the problem, your third thing is to answer, how do I find them? How do I get in touch with them? Because you can have the solution, they can have the problem. If you can't connect, nothing happens. So you've got to know, all right, what is the problem that I can solve? Who has the problem? How can I reach them? And the last thing, we'll talk a little bit more about this later. We'll talk a lot about this more later. Why am I the best person to solve their problem? Okay, that's so important. We will come back to that. But for the moment, I want to leave you with that one really big takeaway. You are not speakers. You are problem solvers. Now, for those of people that say, well, gee, I wanted to be a motivational speaker. Okay, you still can, but you're not a motivational speaker. The problem is people are unmotivated. People are directionless. People they don't want to get off the couch and quit streaming YouTube videos. You've got to motivate them. The problem is there. You're a motivator. That's how you solve their problem. Another problem would be the humorist. Humorist, okay, it's a big problem. There is a little bit of depression going around. I've heard it said that if you're not depressed, you're not paying attention. Well, what's the antidote to depression? It can be a humorist. But you're not a humorist, you are a problem solver. The problem that you are solving is people are unhappy, and I happen to be the best person to solve that problem. That's what you should be saying, okay? So whatever you are doing, however you promote yourself to other people, that's not how you say to yourself in the mirror. You say, hello, I am a problem solver, okay? All right. I'm going to give you 3 really big takeaways, and that was the first one, okay? I am not a speaker. I am a problem solver. Second one, things have changed. and my presentation is changing. Normally in the past, when I talk to people about becoming a professional speaker, one of the first things that I advise them to do is write a business plan. I am a big believer in writing business plans. However, that is not what you should do at this particular time. Reason being, business plans are detailed and things are changing so fast. The details are changing so fast. I think there's a very good chance that you're going to write a business plan that isn't going to be appropriate, that isn't going to matter after you get done with it. So rather than writing a business plan, I suggest that you write a business model. Now that can kind of scare people, so I want you to think of it not as anything really weird or anything like that, but rather as a model train, okay? Everybody's pretty much familiar with that one way or another. A model train is a small representation of the real thing. It's not the real thing, but if you have a model train, you have a pretty good idea of what the real thing looks like. Your business model, you're going to have a pretty good idea of how your business is going to put together. I need another prop to talk about the business model, but unfortunately I had a problem. My next prop is an iceberg, and I couldn't get the iceberg through my office door. So I'm gonna have to ask you to use your imaginations. But if you could, imagine an iceberg. I'll put it right here. Imagine an iceberg, you're on the ocean, you look out and you say, wow, look at that iceberg. Most people recognize, I think, that you're really not seeing the iceberg. You're seeing the tip of the iceberg. You're seeing the top 10% of the iceberg. Most of the iceberg is below the water. Most of the iceberg you don't see. Now, what does that have to do with professional speaking? Here's it. If you've been listening to Darren LaCroix this weekend, and you've been looking at him and you're saying, wow, that is wonderful. Oh, I want to do that. I want to do that so bad. You've been looking at the tip of the iceberg. You've been looking at the top 10%. And that's great. That's wonderful. That's the fun part. That's what makes everything fun. But there's 90% of it below there that you don't see. You don't see what Darren is doing after he leaves here and goes back to work. Anything from answering emails to doing research to writing presentations to researching to doing marketing. Everything behind the scenes that's not on the platform, so to speak, is the 90% of the business that isn't visible. And unfortunately, many Toastmasters think that when they're seeing the top 10%, when they're seeing somebody like Darren on stage doing great things, that they see a professional speaker at work. They're not. They're seeing a professional speaker on stage. At work is behind the scenes, everything that's happening there. And that is what your business model is. Your business model is going to describe not just the top 10%, but the bottom 90% of what your speaking business is like, what it does. Basically, what you're going to do is like the train. The train is made up of different parts. You have the wheels that turn around and they move the train forward. You have the pistons that move back and forth. You have the steam part because this is a steam engine. At the front, you have a light so that you can go in the dark. You have a cow catcher for catching cows. That's actually what it's called. You've got all the different parts and they do different things and they all work together. I want you to do that for your business. Divide your business up into parts, but say how they work together. One of the ways of doing this is following the flow of the money. Because again, this is pro speaking, we're talking about money. How are you going to make money? Some people operate under the assumption that they're going to speak and people are going to pay them. Fee-paid speaking has been diminishing over the years, and it quite possibly will take a real hit in the future. It's still there and it's still possible, but many speakers, I hesitate to say most, although I believe it is most, derive their income from, most of their income anyway, from other places than from speaking. They use speaking more as a promotional and a marketing and a positioning tool than actually generating income. They generate income through product sales. They generate income by providing services, coaching and consulting, something like that. They generate income through other ways than by speaking. You don't have to, but you need to be aware that there are other ways of making money. And let's see, let me do a little side thing for a moment. Back to the resource packet. I'm not going to try to pull it up because I will lose it completely there. But if you look in the resource packet, there's a description of something called Pro Speaker U. Pro Speaker U is a little thing I've put together. It doesn't cost anything, it's free, and it describes different aspects of becoming a professional speaker. Within Pro Speaker U, I just happened to think of this, there is a list of, I think, 55 different ways that professional speakers can make money. So if you are stuck on the idea that you're going to get paid to give a speech, I would recommend finding that article and look at some of the other ways that professional speakers make money. The reason for this is very important. Things are going to change over the next few months. And if you stake all of your income on one thing, there's a very good chance you're going to be put out of business. So you want to have a diversified income. You want to have income from a variety of different places so that if one of them gets taken out, you can go on to the others. Okay? All right. Now, lost my place. Where was I going? Oh, yeah, we're doing the business model and you're following the different parts around. Now, talking about money, let's talk about your book. I think it's written somewhere, I don't know where, but somewhere it's written that all pro speakers have to have a book. That's fine. I have nothing wrong with a book, but I should tell you a truth right now. You're not going to make money on it. Very few speakers, I wouldn't say it's impossible, but very few speakers make money off of their books, especially their first book. It just doesn't happen. Your first book is a great positioning tool. It's a great marketing tool. It's a great way to get yourself in front of other people. It's a great giveaway item. The chances of your making money are slim. So as part of your business model, you identify your book, and it is an expense depending upon whether it's going to be a printed book or an ebook. It depends, will determine how much of an expense it is, and it will generate maybe a little bit of income, but not much income. Your presentations, you may have a training presentation, you may have a keynote. Will they generate income? Will they have expenses associated with them? Follow the different parts around, follow the money as it moves from one part to another to say how your business model is put together. Now, the great scientist Einstein, with his theory of relativity, proved that time is money. So you need to follow time around through your business plan as well. What are you going to be spending your time on? You can't have more than 24 hours in the day. I don't care how you do it. You're going to have substantially less than that you can put towards your speaking career. It may only be 1 hour a day. It may be 8 hours a day. It may be 14 hours a day. It's up to you. But how are you going to spend that time? How much time are you going to spend developing your programs? How much time are you going to spend researching your material? How much time are you going to spend rehearsing your presentations? How much time are you going to spend after the project, after the presentation, getting back to people and that sort of thing? All these things take time, and you have to determine where you're going to be spending your time on the different things. How much time it's going to take, where are you going to put it? Now, one of the great things, great things and one of the most depressing things about your business model is you may put your business model together and you may determine that your engine has square wheels. Your business model doesn't work. You put it together and you do the different things and you say, it isn't working. I've got either too much to do in the amount of time that I've got, or the money isn't there, or whatever. That's great. You want to find that out before you go into business, doing it actually. You want to find it out on the model level. So don't get discouraged if your business model doesn't make sense. Change your business model. But before you can change it, you've got to have one. So I want you to develop not a business plan. Pro Speaker U also has a lot of information, a ton of information on writing a speaker's plan. But for the time being, don't write a speaker's plan, come up with a speaker's model. Every part of your business, define what it is, what it costs you in time and money, and what it costs you in time and money, what it's going to provide you maybe in time and money, how it relates to other things in your business. Okay? All right. That was the second takeaway. Here's the third takeaway. Be different. Don't be the same as everybody else. You don't want to be, it distresses me when somebody says that they speak on customer service. Everybody speaks on customer service. You don't speak on real estate sales. You don't speak on customer service. You don't speak on, you're not a motivational speaker. I don't want you to be a motivational speaker. I don't want you to be a anything. I want you to be the speaker who speaks on whatever, or the speaker who speaks in a particular way. Be differentiating. If you were to describe going in a slightly different direction, not pro speaking, but it's something that I think most people here are familiar with from this weekend. If you were to describe the world champion speakers over, say, the last 30 or 40 years, would you describe it in terms of quality? Oh, he was the speaker that was so good. No, that doesn't narrow it down. They're all really, really good. They wouldn't win the world championship either. But if I told you the speaker that fell on his face in his world champion presentation, you would know who I was talking about. You would know that I was talking about Darren LaCroix. So I want you to be not a speaker, but the speaker. I want you to differentiate yourself either in your style or your content, or preferably both. I've been doing that a little bit during this session. I demonstrated at the beginning that I can use slides. They don't always work, but I can just prove it again. There we go. It does work. And I'm back again. But I chose not to. Instead, I've used props, partially for the reason to illustrate what I'm talking about here. Differentiate yourself. Now, I'm realistic. I recognize that after we're done, maybe a week later, that many of you will not remember my name. Okay, I'm disappointed, I'm hurt, but I can live with that. I'm used to it. There's a very good chance that you may not remember what I'm talking about. I hope you're getting some takeaways from it, but you may not remember what I'm talking about. But I'll lay you odds that most people will remember the guy that used props, the guy that used the model trains, the guy that used the big bucks, and that sort of thing. Now, I'm not saying that you should use props. I'm saying that you should be different from everybody else. Okay? All right. Now, this gives me an opportunity, a nice segue, to go into Toastmasters. Before I say what I'm going to say, I want to make it clear I love Toastmasters. I think Toastmasters is the greatest thing since sliced bread. I've been a member for over 30 years. I intend to be a member for another 20 years. And when at that time, I expect you to throw me a really big 50th anniversary party. But for the meantime, I love Toastmasters, but I recognize it has problems. One of the problems that's appropriate to professional speaking and what we're talking about today is that it tends to turn out cookie cutter speakers. One speaker tends to look like another speaker. And the reason for this is Toastmasters' attention to, I won't say obsession with, but its attention to minimizing weaknesses. For example, the accursed filled pause, ums and ahs. Most Toastmaster clubs make a big deal of eliminating, if not minimizing, if not outright eliminating, ums and ahs. And here's the thing, when it comes to professional speaking, yes, your speaking skills should be good. They should be as good as you can make them. But if you have killer content, if you have a message that people want to hear and, more important, need to hear, and if you can do it in an engaging way that keeps people's attention, People are going to be throwing money at you regardless of how many ums and ahs you may say. It's better to minimize them, but it's not that important. Your content is more important. Your style is more important. Your differentiating factor is more important. So for Toastmasters, what I recommend, and you can talk to your evaluator about this or your club or just somebody that you're close to, but you don't want to emphasize minimizing your weaknesses. Instead, I want you to identify and strengthen, improve your strengths, okay? Don't worry so much about your ums and ahs. Find out what you are good at. Find out what your strengths are. Now, it might be your smile. It might be your vocabulary. It might be your video presence. It might be your appearance. It might be your sense of humor. It could be all kinds of things. Everybody has a strength. In fact, I think everybody has more than one strengths, but frequently they don't know what they are. And I want you to identify your strengths, and I want you to build on your strengths through Toastmasters and not worry so much about improving your grammar, making your grammar perfect, eliminating all your ums and ahs and that sort of thing. Build on your strengths. And that, the reason for that is you can use that to differentiate yourself. There are many ways of differentiating yourself. You could wear a funny hat. Hey, I'm going to be the speaker that wears a funny hat. That's okay. That's not a problem, except the problem is if it works, somebody else is going to copy you. Then they're going to put on a funny hat. What you want to do is take the things that are uniquely yours, your strengths, the things that make you you, and build on those, make them even better. And that is how one of the things that will make you a professional speaker that people want to hire. Okay? All right. I'm doing good here. I'm actually ahead of time of what I anticipated, so we'll use that time to answer more questions than I thought I was going to be able to. I will take control back after I do a couple of them, and I will still answer all of your questions again in the resource packet after the session. But for now, Brandon, is there one question in particular that you think would benefit everybody more than any other?
Well, I've only got one question in the chat so far.
Oh, okay.
What was the greatest thing before sliced bread?
Good question. I don't know. I've often wondered about that. Actually, I can tell you.
Tim answers this. If you have other questions, please throw them in the chat now.
Yeah, you go. Actually, I can answer that. I wasn't expecting that particular question, but I can answer it. I don't remember the exact date, but there is a date that sliced bread was invented at. Betty White was born before that by about 3 years. That means that Betty White is better than sliced bread. I'm not getting a commission, but if Betty White wants to send me something in appreciation, I wouldn't object. Has anybody else submitted a question? If not, I can make something up.
I've got a part of a question from High and Green. What are the, I'm not sure what you were asking because I didn't get the rest of the question. What are the major differences between an online presentation and an in-person presentation?
Wow, that's a great question. Unfortunately, I definitely do not have time to answer that. In fact, I think at last year's District 47 conference, I believe I gave a presentation on exactly that, and it took close to an hour to talk about the difference between an in-person presentation and an online presentation. One of the biggest, and this seems like a small point, but it's a really big one, is when you're in person, it's important to establish eye contact. It's important to look at your audience, to actually see them, to get feedback from them so that you can see, are you registering with them? Are you connecting with them? And you cannot do that in an online presentation, literally. If you look at a person's eyes, you're going to be looking at the screen and you're going to be doing, for example, this. I'm looking at people's eyes right now. I'm not looking at the camera. It looks like I'm looking down from your point of view. In order to connect with the audience, you have to ignore their eyes. You have to look at the camera. And so I have a little stick-em note put up here beside the thing, beside my camera, to remind me to look here, because I forget sometimes. For 40 years, I've been looking people in the eyes. It's a hard thing for me to remember that I'm not supposed to look people in the eyes anymore. I look people in the camera. Now, of course, by looking people in the camera, that means that I can't see people anymore. If I did pull up gallery view, which I don't have at the moment, but if I did pull up gallery view, I could only look at 25 people at a time. I can't look at an entire audience, and I love to look at an entire audience. So I don't get the connection with an online presentation that I would like to have with an in-person presentation. And not having the connection means that I have to do different ways of connecting with the audience. So I would say that the eye contact and the connection with the audience are two of the bigger ones. That's not to say that there aren't some advantages. You can do some great things. Slide preparations, moving from one slide to another, is a lot easier, if it works right, than when you're moving from, there we go, when you're trying to do it online. Use of props, you can use props in an in-person presentation, but people can see the props a lot better here. So when I show you the beer mug that I'm going to have filled after this presentation is over, I can show it to you and you understand what it is, whereas props frequently get lost if you're using props in an in-person presentation. So there are differences, there are strengths and there are weaknesses to each, and basically that is why I'll put in a commercial for Toastmasters here. I don't know about you, but we've had an unfortunate tendency in our my brick and mortar club, my home club, to about half of the membership dropped out. They weren't interested in doing video. That is such a crime. Whether you're going to be a pro speaker or a public speaker, video is the future. I don't know exactly what the future is going to be like, but I know it's going to be involving video. You've got to go to Toastmasters. You've got to be involved in an online club, which nowadays all clubs are online, to hone your video skills. They are just as important as honing your in-person skills, which hopefully before too long, we will be back to an in-person environment, and you can do both. Next question.
Next question. I had a few people ask this and variations on it. How do you identify your strengths? What's the best way to do that?
Wow. That's a good question also. I like that. You probably cannot do it yourself. It's a psychological thing that we are really good at identifying our weaknesses. If you ask somebody, write down the things that you don't like about yourself, they can tear through that list real fast. If you ask them to list the things that they like about themselves, they get stuck. After about 30 or 40 seconds, they can't think of any others, and that's a darn shame. You need somebody else to do it for you. You need a friend, preferably a Toastmaster friend, because they know what to look for. We're not looking for strengths like you have honesty and integrity. Well, I mean, that's nice, but that doesn't come across through the stage. So we're looking at video, we're looking at verbal communication presentations, we're looking at video presence and that sort of thing. And for those strengths, it helps to talk to a Toastmaster, a friendly Toastmaster. Hopefully your evaluator will identify your strengths for you, but they may not. They may be hung up on correcting your weaknesses. In that case, talk to somebody else in the club. If you have a mentor, work with them, or make anybody your mentor. Ask them, what are my strengths? I don't know, and get them to tell you. And you may be surprised. You may not think, well, gee, I'm not funny, but they'll tell you, yeah, you are. And I didn't think I was funny. I'm a technical instructor. I spent the first 10 or 15 years teaching computers. And believe me, there's nothing funny about computers. But then I would join Toastmasters and people started telling me, hey, you're kind of funny. And I thought, are you kidding? I'm not funny. But then I started actually trying it, doing different things. And I found actually, yeah, humor is fun. Getting laughter is a hell of a lot better than getting applause. So I'm not a humorist. I don't think I'm that good, but I insert humor into my presentations. So finding your strengths, I would say use Toastmasters and go to somebody that you know and trust and ask them. But don't ask yourself. You probably won't get an honest answer. Another one.
Okay, I've actually got a couple of related ones here.
Good.
I have one person who asked, what changes have you observed in the career of a speaker? What used to be different?
Hmm.
I've got another related question that is, can you share any problems you've solved in your business or career?
Problems that I've solved for my customers?
Or problems in your business?
Or problems
I
in
might
my
get some
business?
clarification on that, but
Yeah.
tell us a little bit about the business of public speaking.
Okay. The first one, in answering questions, I've always understood, even before I started formalizing it, that I was a problem solver. And as I said, I was in computers at the beginning. And what I did was I taught people how to use their computer systems that they had no idea how to use. And so I was solving a problem. My business problems, I would say basically, I came into the speaking business stupid. I didn't know about the National Speakers Association. I didn't even know about Toastmasters. I was just getting up in front of people and I was talking. And so I had no idea what a business model was. I had no idea that speakers had a business model. I didn't even know that speaking was a business. So the problem that I've solved is that I was stupid, and I'm not as stupid as I used to be. I've learned about the business of speaking. I've learned the importance of a business model, the importance of a business plan, the importance of recognizing that you have a speaking business that goes far beyond having simply a good speech. And what was the other part of the question? How's the speaking business changed? Oh, wow. One of the biggest changes, I think, and this is just personal opinion, is it was a lot easier to make money 30 years ago. You didn't have to be great. You simply had to be good, and you weren't afraid of getting up in front of people. You didn't make a fortune. You have to be great to make a lot of money, but you could make a decent living simply by being good and simply by solving people's problems. That has changed. It's been changing over the years. Toastmasters changed part of that. There are an awful lot of good speakers out there, and being good is not good enough anymore. And so people had to do better in their speaking businesses. Simply being a good speaker who was charging money doesn't work anymore. Video has changed all of that. The people who are video savvy are well positioned over the people who are not. Video is not a passing fad. And I would say actually probably video is the number one biggest change over the last 30 years. Whether you're presenting on video or not, it's still a factor. Actually, I take that back. The biggest change that I've experienced, and this is dating me, but I joined Toastmasters in the year that the World Wide Web was proposed. So the biggest change for me as a professional speaker has been the internet. Now, I hate to say this, but I started everything before email. I started everything before the World Wide Web, and obviously before video. So I was back in the days of dinosaurs and stone tablets. That the internet has changed everything. And, you know, it's just, I can't sum it up any more than that. It's changed everything.
Dinosaurs,
Quick
stone
question.
tablets, and Betty White. We've got
Yeah.
7 minutes. Go ahead.
I was going to say, do you have a quick one?
I got some variations on this one, but what resources would you recommend to aspiring professional speakers?
Okay. It's not a commercial because, as I said, it doesn't cost anything. Go to the resource packet. On the resource packet, there's something called Pro Speaker U. This is a labor of love that I'm doing. I'm not making anything on it. I'm taking the information that I've developed over the years and I'm putting it down in Pro Speaker U. Because I'm not charging for it, I make no claims about the quality of the information there. It's good information, but some of it is in text, some of it is in video. It's whatever I feel like doing. Check out Pro Speaker U. It's got a wealth of information that's there. The other thing, Darren LaCroix has indicated some different ways of getting information on this. I would say studying the speaking business from professional speakers is one of the best ways of doing it. That will sometimes cost you money, and that doesn't mean that it's a bad thing. It's good information, it's worth money. It comes down to simply a matter of how much you can afford. But it's your career. This is a business. You're going to have to spend money on it. I would say that you can find that money other places. Find that money. There are resources. Just simply go looking for them. They're there. And with that, I need to close it out. I want to do some closing comments now. First of all, a reminder that there is a resource packet. As I've mentioned several times, go there, go to thebarbershop.com/D47VEW. It's dynamic. It will change over time. Also, you can submit any questions that I may not have answered or that you may come up with after this session to jim.d47vew@thebarbershop.com. I will answer those questions and I will get back to you. I will put them in. I'm stammering here. There I am. Because I will put them in the resource packet over the days and weeks that follow. I also want to thank Brandon Kinsey for his work behind as a moderator for this session. He's like an iceberg, and I don't want you to take that in any other way other than the fact that you've only seen the 10% of what he's been doing in feeding me a couple of questions at the end. He's been instrumental in making all this work smoothly, but you haven't seen the 90% behind the scenes that he's been doing. So if I was a success, I hope I was, it's because of the work that Brandon did. Thank you, Brandon. While I'm on it, big thanks to Janine Kinsey. At the beginning of this year, VEW, I won't pronounce it, VEW was not a consideration. If somebody had said we were going to be doing this, they would have thought that was absurd. It was maybe an idea 2 months ago, but that was the extent of it. Janine Kinsey has put this together, and if you think this has been good, if you agree with me, this has been one of the most exciting things to come out of Toastmasters in a long, long, long time. I please hope that you'll let Janine know and show her appreciation. I said before that I had another source of wisdom other than my crystal ball, and I'll share that with you now, if I can pull it up. Last night we had takeout Chinese, and the best part of the Chinese dinner was, of course, the fortune cookie. This is, no kidding, the fortune cookie that came to me last night. If you can't read it, it's every adversity carries with it the seed of an equal or greater benefit. That is the theme of what I've been talking about during this session. This is the worst time to become a professional speaker. This is also the best time to become a professional speaker. The difference is whether or not you understand the important things. And the three things that I felt were most important are to recognize that you're not speakers, you are problem solvers, that the importance of having a business model, like a model train, and recognizing the importance of being different, of standing out from the crowd, of knowing your differentiating factor. And if you have those things, you are head and shoulders above everybody else. You're in front of the race, and you've got a shot. You've got a shot at becoming a successful professional speaker. Whatever you choose to do, whatever route you go down, I wish you every success. And I now return control to our moderator de jour, Brandon Kinsey.
Thank you, Jim. Everyone, let's give Jim another round of applause. Great job today, Jim. We did have a request. If you could type up the text of the fortune cookie and drop it in the chat. Not everybody caught that.
I'll be happy to.
Nick Smith beat us to it.
Already got there from Carrie, I believe.
I see a couple people grabbed it here. Thank you, everybody who helped out with that. District 47 and all of its members, thank you for your presentation this weekend. This is our last of the virtual empowerment weekend, but we do still have an evaluation form for our speaker. If you'll please fill that out, you'll have up to 24 hours to fill that out for Jim. Let him know how he did today. Our next session is not in this room. Our next session is officer training at 2 p.m. If you have registered for officer training, you have received your links, you know where you're going. This room will remain open and will be moderated by Nick Smith for the next hour, and the room will stay open until 4 o'clock, assuming we have people in the room talking still, to chat, talk amongst yourselves, say hello to those who are on the opposite side of the district. Thank you all for joining us today. It has been quite a weekend. Our next session is